everyone that subscribed to my YouTube channel. It's been quite overwhelming to see all the response for my first three interviews with Harrison Kelly, Christopher Barry, and Ryan Christopher. Today, joining us is Alex Stieb. Alex is from the city in America that is the epicenter of all the political action. Alex is a business owner and entrepreneur. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. Hi, Alex.
Hey.
Well, I can see you're quite the patriot, Alex, because I see a beautiful American flag behind you. I think I should have also introduced you as a David Beckham lookalike.
I look like David Beckham? No. At least it's a good compliment.
Look at you going all red. Okay, so Alex, can you just say a few words about yourself?
Yep. You want to go ahead with that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a business owner, entrepreneur, getting my hands into a few different things such as construction, engineering, real estate, IT, software development, trying to expand myself as far reaching as I possibly can.
Okay, looks like you have quite a lot, under the umbrella of things that you want to do. Thank you for that great introduction, Alex. I want to straight away jump into the first question.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
My first question to you will be on education. Since the COVID-19 pandemic started, there's been like a paradigm shift in the way people approach education, be it teachers or students, the way things are taught, the way things are learned. Everything has become more digital. Do you think this is a healthy way as opposed to the traditional way of going to school and mingling with other students, or do you think this is what it is going to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the short and sweet of it is that education is not keeping up with the rate of innovation. We get a 4 or 6 year degree. Technology has completely changed over, and so have all the companies. So as far as like our traditional education, like here's the standard, here's the box, and this is what you have to learn. By the time you've already had that, the industry's changed altogether, which is why we've seen some deficit where people are getting these 4 year degrees, aside from them not getting degrees that are really pertinent, but also degrees that become, I would say, like worthless in the sense that they just don't match what's currently in the industry as of today. As far as going back to a traditional education, I'm sure that there will be parts of that. But I just don't see that being the long-term future because our education system keep up with that rate of innovation. Otherwise, we're going to have this huge gap between the people that can keep up with that pace and the people that can't. So I think that it has to change in a lot of ways.
I also would like to understand the role of software in this whole process. What is it going to be?
Look at how engaged our youth are getting into like video games. They've learned to immerse younger generation and kids into different platforms and teach them all sorts of different things to advance through a series of complex challenges in a very short period of time. And I think we need to take some notes from industries like that. And yeah, when you ask about software, we also need in-person type things. I think that virtual reality will be able to help with that as we start to get that more advanced to where we may be able to have immersion to like in-person type platforms by being, way across the world. You put on a set of goggles, and then you can be right inside of in a lab setting or right inside some kind of place that we would never otherwise get to see.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine being able to throw on a pair of virtual reality goggles and then be right next to a fusion reactor, as a student, where otherwise you wouldn't be able to? That's a very real possibility in the near future. And I think that's ultimately where it needs to go, is that combination of like in-person as well as also like that software reality technology to where we can start immersing students in these different industries, and but actually physically putting them in there, because mentally we retain a lot more by being immersed into something and having an experience rather than reading about it or writing about it. But if we can get all aspects of our learning styles all at once, I think that's going to be where the key is going to lie.
Yeah, so certainly some great points there, Alex. Especially, I agree with the virtual reality, either substituting or complementing the traditional form of teaching. I think that could bring down the costs as well. Of course, there would be some initial investment required. Well, thank you so much for that insight. I'm going to move on to the second question. This is about change or revolution, whatever you want to call it. Uh, We've been noticing in the last decade or so, there's been much more awareness with the next generation in terms of whatever needs to change in the world. There are a lot of global movements which happened first with respect to climate change and now with Black Lives Matter. I want to understand from you what, according to you, would be the next big thing that's going to become the next cause for youngsters to rally behind.
The biggest one I think is going to be more related to a combination of like we've experienced globalism, right, where commerce is across the world, but I don't think we've come to the point that where aside from the commerce necessarily driven, but we're not reading information um, more free flowingly. Like, you and I are, completely in opposite ends of the world here, and we're being able to share our experience. And I think that's going to be that next revolution that where we're going to start looking to other nations and looking to other people that have a system that works where we're not having to necessarily pay some substantial price and travel fees and lodging to get those experiences. So I think that that's where it's going to be. That next revolution is into trading information on a global scale. Is my could be wrong, but that's kind of my gut instinct of where I think I see
Hmm.
things going.
But do you think this will affect people wanting to go abroad to study?
Yeah, I think so. I think so because I mean I think it comes from like the East wants to see the West and the West wants to see the East, and it's like we see all these cross cultural type things that we all want to experience, and I think ultimately that's going to be the way to ease a lot of that tension. It's not this like exclusive thing where you have to save thousands of dollars to experience that education and experience that culture. Because again, we can have quick Zoom call and be able to have a conversation with anywhere in the world. That's never really been something that's been throughout the history, and now we have that ability, especially if it comes from the private sector and innovation rather than the governments. I'd rather see that come from, like you say, the youth than the adopters that are going to force the change because of natural innovation and be in a better process rather than just some political reason. But let's have a good process that works and a good system that works, and and then this is getting some results, so let's put some attention there.
Yep, great. Process always works. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question, the tone of which will be kind of lighter than the other two. If I was to ask you to pick humor, innocence, and kindness, a quality which is going to last till the end of your life, which one would you choose and why?
Um, hmm. I would say humor. And the reason I use that one at the most is that oftentimes I see too many people get caught up in stress. It puts us into like a fight or flight response mode, and then we don't get to innovate, and then that innocence gets robbed. Our kindness gets robbed. Whereas I think if we have that lightheartedness, keeping our friendships humorous and being able to ease that tension, I think as humans drawn to comedies because a lot of times the humor comes from like those really high tense things and somebody cutting through it all. Keep things light and humorous because that's allows for a lot of other things to be put into perspective.
Oh, well, pretty clever answer there, Alex, because I think you chose humor as that's going to propel innocence and kindness, isn't it?
Yep.
So, what is your question? One of the three that's going to be asked back at me.
I'm gonna ask you the question there. What would you see as being that way into the future, and like what that major innovation might end up
I was hoping you would not ask me
it's a
that
tough
question,
question,
man.
and that's
Well, seriously, I think the next big revolution, if at all there's going to be one, will be something to do with the global finance, global economy as such, because there is so much of disparity between the rich and poor, even now, in this day and age of information. But the youth of today, they are able to understand things that the previous generations never understood.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and I'd like to give an example where you can imagine a kid from a poor country who probably doesn't even have a roof over his head, but he's still going to know who is Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, and he would know their lifestyles. It is not impossible for that kid to dream uh, and sort of try to achieve things that probably his parents or the previous generation never had the ability to even dream because they had no access to technology that this kid does today. He has an access to the cell phone, to the internet. Do you know what I mean? But that being said, it's not probably easy to sort of have that revolution because there's going to be a lot of political interference worldwide. But then when there's a revolution, automatically the politics, will change. That's how it always is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's going to be the next big revolution, something that is going to make everyone equal, or hopefully more equal than what it is today.
Yeah, I have to put like I mean, you make a very good point about having access to being able to see that it's not some being rich and poor is not some giant elusive thing. Everybody has the ability to be rich if they have the right mindset, and it's and that we see some billionaires and multimillionaires were impoverished themselves, like Jeff Bezos, as you bring up, like he was flipping burgers in his early 20s, and now he has one of the wealthiest people in the world. It's like that's being able to see that progression, I think, will inspire people in the long run, like you said, and I think that's a very, very important part to note.
I keep thinking that maybe one of these days we can get to have a podcast where everyone getting together and talking about, the favorite drink or something like that.
You might get some people though. That might turn into a 45-minute podcast.
Yeah. Looks like you have quite a lot going on today. Thanks a lot for this great interaction, Alex.